We are live with Chef Harry Sasson, live from Bogota and Los Angeles. We're going to give a couple minutes for people to join, but we really appreciate Chef Harry to join us. Chef Harry is, he'll tell us about him and how he got started in the culinary world. But we are really excited for Chef Harry to join the 196 Flavors family. So as we have people joining, just a couple of things. One is for people who don't know about 196 Flavors, just to tell you about us. We've been around for almost 9 years now, and we want to really become the Wikipedia of authentic cuisine and culinary history. So we are a website that is available in English, French, but also Spanish for people who join us from Colombia or from Latin America. The website itself is entirely in Spanish as well. So all the recipes as well as the articles are also available in Spanish. We partner with chefs and experts like Chef Harry Sasson to provide us with the authority and the credibility on the research that we do. And like I said, very excited about having Chef Harry provide us this authority on Colombian cuisine. And before we get started, for people who are joining, I wanted to make sure that you know that regardless of where you join from, whether it's YouTube or Facebook, you can actually ask your questions to Chef Harry on the comment section. So feel free to post your questions and we will either answer them as they come in, or we will table them until the end of at the end of the discussion. So feel free to ask as many questions as you'd like. This session will also be recorded, so you will have the opportunity to watch it at a later time on Facebook or YouTube. And without further ado, Chef Harry, to get started, maybe if you can introduce yourself for people who may not know about you, and maybe also tell us about how you got started in the culinary world.
Hi, Mike. How are you? Thanks for inviting me. Greetings to everybody from Colombia. We're in Bogota. We're in my main restaurant right now, prepping up for lunch. It's 11 o'clock Bogota time, and I would say my last name, Sazon, in Spanish means flavors, means seasoning. And like my father used to say, I was born with a profession. Ever since I can remember, all I wanted to do is cook. And I did my training. I went to cooking school in Bogota, did my training with the Hilton Hotels, and had the opportunity to travel to Canada. I lived in Vancouver for some years, about 5, 6 years, where I learned and I decided that I wanted to be a chef in a restaurant. I would like to have my own restaurant instead of being in the hotel business. And I learned to appreciate the quality of the ingredients being in the Pacific Northwest, enjoying the freshness of produce. Came back in 1994 to Bogota. 95, I opened my first restaurant named H. Sasson Walk and Satay Bar. That moment, I wanted to show the Colombian palate what was going on in the world with the East meets West flavors of the Asian cuisine. And since then, I started to open more restaurants. I did a French bistro to show the classic French cuisine. I did a New York style steakhouse with a big tapas bar. And as a Colombian, I wanted to recuperate the Colombian recipes and the Colombian flavors. And we opened with a friend of mine a very big Colombian restaurant called Cube Colombia. We were open for 15 years, and sadly, we had to close it down with the pandemia because of the high rents in Bogota. That restaurant recuperated the recipes of the mothers, the grandmothers, the aunts, all those recipes of recipes that were handed down of traditional cuisine. We did not do any new Colombian cuisine, but what we did was the local fare. Very interesting, lots of studying for it, lots of traveling, trying to to make the perfect ajiaco, trying to make the best plate of beans, trying to see how many arepas we could make, or empanadas, chicharrones, all those things that bring us back to our roots and our flavors.
Perfect. Actually, since you mentioned ajiaco, there was a question that came in a little earlier. Colombian cuisine, I know of a soup with chicken and corn, and I'm guessing that we are talking about the ajiaco. So, I know we're not starting to talk about Colombian cuisine yet, but maybe if you can tell us what is ajiaco, which I think is originally from Bogota, no?
Yes, ajiaco is a traditional soup that it comes with 3 different types of potato. We have a local Creole potato, which is very starchy and yellow, which thickens the soup. It has corns, like the gentleman said. It's done with chicken right now, but in the first um, days, it was made with capitan, which was a local fish that landed around the lakes here.
Interesting.
No more capitan, so now it's made with chicken, and it has some tubers like arracacha, rascas, they call it in English, and it's flavored with a green leaf called huasca, which is
Which you can't find outside of Colombia. I tried, and it's very difficult to find.
only grown in the high altitude near Bogota. It's delicious. It's a hearty soup, sticks to your ribs. Um, we have a little bit of the Spaniards' tradition in there, of the influence that it has a little bit of garnishes that you put at the end, like whole cream and capers. The capers came in the first ships that came to America through the Spaniards, and that is in the soup at the end.
And I think the corn that is used is also a little different from the one that we know here. It's mazorca.
It's mazorca. It's Creole corn. It's not sweet corn, and it has a larger grain, a larger how do you say that, corn? The bits of the corn.
Yeah.
But it's delicious. It's very good.
Yeah, I think like in the size it's similar to hominy, like in the size itself. To me it sounded kind of not the taste, but in terms of the size of the grain.
Exactly.
But so yeah, we had a question here, so I just wanted to show it because we were just talking about it. But let's get to it. Like, let's talk about Colombian cuisine. So maybe let's start about, I had the pleasure of discovering Colombia actually this year for the first time, and I'm starting to really love the country and really discover the entire country. So it's a very unique country, like you said, with Bogota being so high, in altitude, and being able to grow different produce and herbs and vegetables that we may not find in other places. It also has access to 2 separate oceans on each side, the Caribbean on the east and the Pacific on the west side. So very diverse type of cuisines and ingredients. But also let's talk about the influences of Colombian cuisine. And I think we lost Chef Harry. Are you still with us? I think we lost Chef Harry, and he might have to reconnect from his phone maybe. But while we're waiting, Chef Harry is actually joining us from Bogota, from his flagship restaurant, Harry Sasson, and he's having difficulties here. So like I said, feel free to start asking questions about Colombian cuisine, about some of the ingredients, some of the produce, as well as recipes that we're happy to discuss. We have included quite a few Colombian recipes on the website, so you have access to them. And Chef Harry is actually back with us. Are you with us?
Yes, I'm back.
All right, cool. So yeah, we were just starting to talk about the influences. Maybe if you can tell us about the different influences that we can find in traditional Colombian cuisine. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Chef Harry?
Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, let's try it again. If not, I'll move over to my cell phone.
All right. So yeah, if you can tell us about the different influences of Colombian cuisine, from Caribbean, African, native, and kind of go over like the differences in the recipes or the ingredients that compose Colombian cuisine.
Well, as I was telling you a couple days ago, Colombian cuisine is like our altitude or different thermical pisos térmicos we say in Colombia. Colombia has high mountains and we're on sea level. We have the benefit of being on two oceans, the Pacific and the Atlantic Oceans, but we also have the main Cordillera de los Andes, the Andean region with the high mountains. And our cuisine is like that, influenced by the natives, the native Indians that we had in Colombia, the Spanish influence that came with the Spanish. The Spanish. We had some British that came in for a while that handled the cuisines, and we had a lot of African influence. African with all the slavery that came with the Spaniards to work on the south on the sugar plantations. So we have many influences, and the cuisine is like that. We have the pork brought by the Spaniards, the corn that was grown in the Andes, lots of different potatoes that we're recuperating now, and that's what Colombian cuisine is all about.
Absolutely. And some of we'll go over some of the flagship recipes and obviously some of the differences between the different regions. But as you mentioned, you can see glimpses of those influences depending on where you go in Colombia. So as you mentioned, Bogota is a very high altitude capital at about 2,800 meters. And because of that, you're going to find ingredients and recipes that you may not find in other regions, like the coast. I mean, the coastal cuisine, the comida costeña, is very different with a lot, obviously, the emphasis on fish and ceviche and so on, very different from what you would find in cities like Bogota, of course, but Cali or Medellin, which may not be as high as Bogota, but the pisos térmicos, as you mentioned, the thermical levels are really going to have a big influence on the cuisine that you're going to find in those different cities. So maybe if you can talk about flagship recipes. I know there's going to be some that are national, like arepas, with obviously regional differences. But if you can maybe go over like some of those staples of Colombian cuisine.
Well, Colombian cuisine it was designed for the countryman to go out, el campesino, to go and work in the countryside. So it's a hearty cuisine, all of it. It's high caloric. It has a lot of starch on it. You can find in one dish potatoes, rice, plantains, yuca. Then you have some protein like beef or pork or fish in the coastal regions. Some lamb, some goat, um, lots of dishes wrapped in banana leaves, like all the tamales that we have. Our tamales are very different to a tamale from Mexico. Mexican tamales are done in the corn husk. These are done in one of the beautiful palms that we have here, like a banana palm, a plantain, a chisgua, or other different palms that we have in Colombia. And every tamal, for example, in every region, it's wrapped in a different way and it has a different ingredient inside. Bogota, for example, has chickpeas and rice. In El Tolima, they make it El Tolimense, which is one of my favorites. I had some great ones the other day. It comes with the pork. It has a hard-boiled egg inside. Everything wrapped in a banana leaf and steamed for a long time. Beautiful flavor, lots of seasoning. Colombian cuisine has a sofrito as a base of garlic, onions, tomato. We use a lot of cilantro in our cuisine too. Uh, Lots of soups, for example, sancochos, pucheros, puchucos, all different soups done with the local ingredients of the zone. In the coastal regions, we have the influence of the plantains. We have ripe plantains or green plantains, and they're in the soups. They're in the soup, deep fried, and lots of coconut. We have beautiful coconut rice, but all our soups in the coastal region are based in coconut milk. Also, the seasoning brought from Africa in the coastal regions. Lots of allspice or pimienta dulce, sweet pepper, we call it here, or allspice, cinnamon, garlic, cloves, all those spices brought by the Africans.
You mentioned a lot of ingredients that you actually find in, I don't know if it's considered a national dish, even though I think it came from the Antioquia region, but bandeja paisa, you mentioned about chicharron or beans or all these ingredients that you find in one dish that is very hearty, very caloric, but that represents like all of these different influences.
La bandeja paisa, the paisa tray or platter, I would say, it was designed after a local cazuela de frijol. It wasn't served the way it is served right now. It was served a plate of beans, and on the side they would put, so you can put inside the rice, the ground beef, the chicharron, the avocado, and the chorizo. Now they serve it on a platter with a fried egg on top, and it was created in the 1950s, I would say. But it's hearty, it's delicious too.
It's very hearty, yeah. I think we may have briefly talked about arepa. So arepa is obviously probably one of the national staples, but with a lot of variations depending on the region that you come from. So if you can tell us about what arepa is first, but also like what you could find in different regions.
Arepa is what a tortilla is to a Mexican. It's an arepa to a Colombian. Arepa is made with corn, or in different regions they use rice where the corn is not available. Also, they use lentils or they use plantains, but it's a local bread normally made out of corn, like hominy, which is soaked, cooked, ground, and seasoned. Some of them are just plain with or without salt, cooked on a griddle or a grill, and it's used to accompany a meal. But arepas, you can find them like in Bogota. That same corn, it's enriched with butter and fresh cheese, done a little thicker, like a gordita in Mexico, also griddle. Then we have arepas made with fresh corn. That is, the corn is ground fresh, and they add cheese and other ingredients, and it's done like a crepe or a, um,
Pancake or
exactly like a cake
yes.
baked on a wood burning oven. And then we have the arepas that are fried. One of my favorites is arepa con huevo, which comes from the coast. I would say it's one of the most interesting dishes. It's hearty. It's a breakfast or a snack where they make out of yellow cornmeal or yellow corn, a dough with warm water, a little bit of oil and salt. You can try that at home with even use polenta, and um, knead it like bread. Then you let it rest. You make the ball, you flatten it, and you deep fry it in hot oil.
This is actually my favorite arepa when I stayed in Cartagena or the coast.
Exactly.
That's I was splurging on it.
So you put a little bit of oil on top with a spoon when you're frying it, and it would souffle, it would rise up. You bring it out, you make a little hole, you put a raw egg inside, and you deep fry it again, and you make a arepa con huevo. The
And it's
original
served with typically with suero costeño, which is a thinner
hot
sour
sauce.
cream.
It's like a sour cream. And what we normally the arepa con huevo, it has also a little bit of ground beef or pork inside, and makes it a little hardier.
Even
To
more.
Yeah, exactly. But
Um,
it's magical. It's delicious.
yeah, so there's a lot of things that I had a chance to discover when I was there, and obviously like some local specialties. One that from Cali, I know you mentioned that for arepa, and I don't think it would be, I don't know if it would be considered a type of arepa, but aborajado is mashed plantain with some kind of filling. So
Yes.
you mentioned that sometimes arepas are
Normally,
made with plantain. Would it be considered an arepa or?
no, not at all. Aborrajado is a plantain, a sweet plantain, normally with cheese. Sometimes they put a piece of guava paste inside, and they dip it in a batter and they deep fry it, and it's delicious too. In Cali, we have the most beautiful empanadas. I would say la comida bayuna. It's delicious with their sancocho and their empanadas de pipián, which is uh, the it's so crisp and thin, the shell of the empanada, and to achieve it, you need to soak the corn for about 5 or 6 days and ferment it a little bit, and then you cook it and you grind it, and you make a filling with Creole potatoes from the local region, which is a yellow and red potato, and it has a peanut influence inside, also from the Africans. So it's very interesting. It's delicious.
Very good, very interesting. There's obviously a lot of street food when you travel through Colombia. Obviously, a lot of arepas. But one thing that I discovered and I got hooked on, and I actually brought back from Colombia, is those things, the obleas.
Obleas.
So I don't think people would make them at home. I don't know. It's probably much easier to just buy them. But those are very thin wafers that you can top with. I like Nutella, but obviously arequipe or dulce de leche.
Exactly.
But something I think sometimes you add cheese.
The traditional ones are just arequipe, which is our local dulce de leche, which has a lower sugar point than the Argentinian dulce de leche. It's a little milder, and they sometimes they put. Are we there? Can you hear me,
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm still here. We can still hear you. Are you there?
Yes. Are you? Yeah, we're here.
Yeah, we can hear you.
So the obleas normally is with the dulce de leche. Then they started putting blackberries on it and cheese. In my house, my kids love to spread it with Nutella too, or peanut butter. So there's many different things that you can put on them.
Perfect. So we have quite a few questions, and I'm just gonna pick a few to go over specific to Colombian cuisine and the different regions. So let me there's quite a few actually. So I think we talked about it, but if there's any specific spice or herbs that you want to talk about, you mentioned about specific herb that goes in ajiaco, the soup that we discussed with corn and chicken. But are there any other herbs or spices that are really that represent Colombian cuisine?
Yes, I would say cilantro and cumin. Both of those spices are present in many dishes of Colombian cuisine. Garlic, a little bit of ginger in some parts of the region, but normally it's fresh thyme, basil leaves on the soups, lots of cilantro, spring onions, which are grown to be matured and have a stronger flavor. Cebolla larga, we call it here, long onion, black pepper, achiote, or color, we call it here, but the achiote is used also in many of the preparations.
Perfect. Thank you. And a question in Spanish from Nomade. ¿Existe el ceviche colombiano?
I would say ceviche comes from all of the Pacific. It starts in the Atlantic, goes into Panama, and goes all the way down into Peru, Ecuador, and we all have ceviche. Ceviche comes from the world encebollar. It's to put onions and salt on fresh fish to preserve it. Lime juice, chilies, cilantro. Those are the main ingredients of ceviche in all our Latin American countries.
Yeah, and I mean, I had different types of ceviche when I was on the coast. One which obviously may not be Colombian, but probably with the Peruvian influences, with ají amarillo, which is a sweet.
That's Peruvian.
That's Peruvian.
Exactly.
Yes. Another question from David. Chef Harry, do you use any coffee in any of your dishes?
I love to use coffee in my marinades. I use the technique that many Americans use, and it's brown sugar and coffee with different spices to season some meats and cook them over the fire.
Wow, perfect. Talking about coffee, Colombian coffee, of course, one of the best in the world. That's, if you have the occasion to go to Colombia, obviously I would highly recommend to go to the Eje Cafetero, the coffee axis, and visit one of the plantations over there. This was an eye-opening experience for me. So now I was never like a coffee fanatic, but I'm starting to become one now that I appreciate what the work that goes behind the preparation of coffee when we receive it on our table here.
I would say in Colombia we have el café más suave del mundo. It's very mellow, it's very sweet, it has different notes, and we have beautiful coffees, specialty coffees that are being grown, lots of geishas, lots of honey, lots of different coffees that we are exporting and are very, very special.
Perfect. Another question. So we touched on that, but what would you say would be the most exotic dishes in Colombian cuisine? And I know when we discussed last week, you mentioned also, like, I asked you what was the most unusual, not just exotic, but the most unusual dish, and you mentioned. And I'll let you answer that question as well.
Well, if you want to talk about exotic dishes in Colombia, I would say las hormigas culonas. Hormigas are ants that are larger ants. They use the back part or the butt of the ant, and they stir fry it. They fry it with salt, and they eat them as peanuts. I would say that's one of the exotic dishes
as a snack
in Colombia.
I don't remember the name, but you also mentioned about a coagulated blood that is almost used as
we
a
also eat
spreadable cheese.
some chigüiro or some relatives to between a rabbit and a mouse, but it's eaten in many regions.
All right, perfect. Let's go over. We have quite a few questions, so let's. So we talked about that when we talked about arepas, but are there any other desserts that are made with corn flour, desserts or other recipes where you would use corn flour?
Well, a typical dessert in the Christmas season is called natilla. Natilla. And natilla is made with cornstarch and milk, seasoned with brown sugar and cinnamon. And it's a dessert they use for Christmas time. But also with corn flour, we do make some corn cakes and some fritters that are dipped in a sugar syrup.
Perfect. So if there are any other questions, please feel free to send them over. We will answer them. There's a few questions, but I think we have probably covered most of them. But if there's any other question, feel free. So another question, do you use brown or palm sugar in Colombian cuisine?
We use lots of brown sugar. It's called panela, like Mexican piloncillo. It's before sugar is refined, and it's one of the most important ingredients in a local home. They drink agua de panela, which is water with brown sugar and sometimes a piece of cheese inside. And families are brought up with this. It's high caloric and it's comfort food.
I'm probably going to butcher the name, but in the street also you can find, and I've seen, is that canelosa or canezola, where with cinnamon and aguardiente as well?
Canelazo?
Canelazo.
It's an aguardiente with some sugar, some lime sometimes, and some cinnamon inside. Served hot. It's almost like a rum teddy or a red wine, a mulled red wine, I think it's called.
Yes. So talking about beverages and alcohol, so if you ask a Colombian what would be the national beverage, they would probably answer aguardiente. So maybe if you can tell us about what it is exactly and how it's used or how it's consumed.
Aguardiente is a distilled beverage out of sugarcane, and it means, the name means flaming water, and it's flavored with lots of anise inside. You could say it's similar to a sambuca with no sugar in it or less sugar in it. It's not as sweet. And we're making some interesting aguardientes right now. One of them is called Mil Demonios, and it's delicious.
Perfect. We have another question here. So what oil is used in Colombian cuisine?
We use regular corn or sunflower seed oils, but also palm oil we're using. It's being refined because Colombians don't understand where it separates, like the dende. So it's refined, but it's very good too. We do a lot of palm oil in Colombia.
So talking about palm, actually, it's a good segue. When we talked about unusual ingredients, you mentioned about hearts of palm, and I know that in other countries we are used to hearts of palm in jars or in cans, but that what Chef Harry is showing us right now is fresh heart of palm. So can you tell us like how you use it? where can we find it, if we can find it, which I don't think we can, but how different it is really from what we are used to in cans or jars?
Well, hearts of palm in Colombia, palmito, es el corazón de la palma del chontaduro. Is the heart of the palm of the chontaduro, which in English they call it a peach tree palm, they call it. It's a fruit that it needs to be blanched before it's eaten, and it's eaten in the Valle del Cauca with salt or with honey or with lime. I'm talking about the fruit that comes out of the palm. About 15 or a little bit more years ago, we started a project with USAID about substitution crops where they were growing coca leaf. Now we're growing hearts of palm or palmas de chontaduro. And I went there for the first time to see the crops. I always wanted to have fresh hearts of palm in my kitchen, learning from the Brazilians that they use it a lot. And it was a privilege for me to have hearts of palm. We started bringing them in the military planes at the beginning, then by bus, and now it's one of the ingredients that we cannot have in my restaurants. They're incredible. Every table wants to try them, and we're supporting a good cause. We're helping. We call it cultivos de paz. We're trying to help the regions that were in the conflict for many years with the growing of the coca leaf and with all the problems we have with cocaine.
Perfect. I can't wait to try it on my next trip to Colombia, but this is really something that is not easy or impossible to find outside of Colombia. So really, would be excited about trying it. A question from Julie: what cheeses are made and enjoyed in Colombia?
Well, traditional cheeses in Colombia are all fresh, are white cheeses made out of cow milk. Now we're making beautiful goat cheeses. We're making French influenced cheeses, but the local traditional cuisine uses fresh cheese. And in some of the regions, like in the Atlantic coast, a lot of salt is added to this cheese to dry it out and make it last longer. Queso costeño is very salty, like a feta, because it needs to last longer. Preservative. Also in the region of Paipa, we are making very interesting mature cheeses that we use them in some of my restaurants, either to grind them very dry or to put them in the wood burning oven as a provolone.
Perfect. Talking about queso costeño, we actually have a recipe on the website that makes use of queso costeño. Obviously, here it's not easy to find. I use feta instead, but it's buñuelos. So maybe if you can, I actually, this is one of those street food which is really delicious. If you can tell us maybe about how different they are from buñuelos as they are known in Mexico. They're very different, but how they're made and consumed.
This is a savory buñuelo, which is corn flour, fresh cheese, a little bit of dry cheese, some eggs, and some baking powder, and it's a fritter. You fry them round, very spongy, very fresh, delicious.
It is delicious. Sometimes, so those are the traditional ones which are plain with cheese in the batter. What I heard is sometimes there is a filling. It could be arequipe, it could be cheese as well, but the traditional one is the.
But that is also modern. That's a twist they're doing. Normally, exactly. Buñuelos are eaten all year round, but in Christmas time, they dip them on Christmas Eve. They dip them in honey to have a sweet Christmas and a sweet New Year.
Perfect. So talking about honey, that there's a question that just came in from David. Chef Harry, do you produce local honey? And what is your favorite honey to use?
Well, we do produce a lot of honey. And my favorite honey comes also from the Putumayo region, where the House of Palm comes, because it has all the flavors of the jungle. So it's delicious. You can feel different flowers in that honey. It's beautiful. And we pay a lot of money for it because it's very, very well done.
So talking about different regions and some of the produce. So when I was there, I actually tried a lot of different produce, whether it's fruits or vegetables that I never really heard of, or we can find in the US or other countries. One of them is lulo, and
Lulo.
there's lulo, which is a little acid and sweet. But if you can tell us about this fruit, and I don't think it's really easy to find outside of maybe the region, not just Colombia, but the region itself.
Well, you can find the frozen pulp of lulo everywhere in the U.S. now. You can find them in Latino markets. It's acid. Um, it's delicious in the Valle del Cauca region, in the Cali region. They make a lulada instead of a lemonade. They chop it up with lots of ice, a little bit of brown sugar, and it's very, very, very good. Its fragrance is it has a lot of it's perfume, but it's sour. It's delicious.
Talking about another beverage from the region, which I'm not sure if it uses lulo, but champus. I think it's
Does
also from Cali, right?
It does use champú, a little bit of lulo, pineapple, and corn.
And corn, yes. So it's a very hard. It's almost like a not solid, but it's not just a beverage. There's a lot of things going on in it. Like when you would have a sangria with a lot of fruits in it,
Exactly.
like you would eat and drink it at the same time almost.
Exactly. They give you a spoon so you can eat the corn.
Absolutely. Another question here. Do you have local donuts in Colombia and fried breads?
Yes, we have fried breads out of, they're done with wheat flour, arepuelas. Uh, it's a piece of it's a piece of fried dough and then sprinkled with sugar. And they eat it for breakfast or they eat it for a snack. Arepuelas.
Arepuela. And is that from a specific region or
Everywhere in Colombia.
everywhere in Colombia? All right. Another question, do you use citrus a lot, and do you use any exotic fruits in dishes? So we talked about a couple of those fruits, but if there's any, I know that I made some notes because obviously I can pronounce, but I don't know if it would be considered a fruit, but arbol de pan or tomato de arbol, granadilla is used a lot as well. It's a type of
Granadilla is delicious. It's a family of the passion fruit, but it's very, very perfumed and sweet. Tomate de árbol, you mentioned it. All the local fruits normally they are cooked in a sugar syrup and preserved, and eaten for dessert with a piece of white cheese, like they do in Mexico, in Spain, when they eat cheese with a fruit, or in Argentina. Here it's done with all those compotes, or with what we call bocadillo, which is the guava paste, our local guava paste.
Yeah, which is done a lot in Brazil as well with the cheese and guava paste as well. It's pretty famous. I was going to mention another one that I tried, mamoncillos. I don't know if it's used in any dishes.
Mamoncillo, we actually make some reductions. It's very difficult to get the pulp and the juice out of it because it's a very large seed with a little bit of a skin and a meat inside. But it's very good. We have also used it in ceviches, and it comes really well because it's high acid and tart. It's very tart.
All right. If you have the occasion to go to the south, closer to the Amazonian region, there's another fruit that again is very hard to, because a lot of those fruits are hard to transport. They ferment pretty quickly. So one that I tried over there more in a juice form was arasa. And it's a sour fruit, but again, you may be able to find the pulp in a frozen, in a frozen, but it's impossible to find as a fresh fruit.
Exactly. There's some fruits that come from the Amazon. We're able to get them fresh or in pulp. We make desserts, we make juices, we make jams out of it, or we can even make hot sauces with the use of this.
So let's talk about breads, because I know we touched on like some fried bread or like arepas and so on, but there's also a lot of different breads like pan de bono and others that is also big, that are pretty big in especially in some regions of Colombia.
All these breads are done with yuca starch, with mandioca, starches that are sour starches, or sour cheeses. They are gluten free. Every region has a different recipe. Some are sweeter than others, some are richer than other ones, but they're all made either for breakfast or for the afternoon with a cup of hot chocolate. Pan de yuca, pan de bono, pan de queso. All those are very interesting. Um, the more rustical made in wood burning ovens are even nicer. Fresh corn sometimes ground inside. They're very good, and they're all staples of a I would call it that Amerindian cuisine, American Indian cuisine.
Yes. So another thing that we touched on, do you make fermented drinks like shisha in Peru from corn, which is purple over there? I had the occasion to try this, but it's not just purple. And there's different.
No, no, no. We make like chicha morada. Here also they make guarapo. They make out of pineapple. All these local fermented drinks, alcoholic. They're not regulated, but there are places where you can go and have them. Normally they serve them in a flask with a paper bag, so they don't see what you're drinking.
Perfect. So let's take a pause in terms of questions. There's if you have any more question for Chef Harry about things that we already discussed or any other ingredients, specific recipes, or local local recipes that you want to talk about, please send them our way. But while we're waiting for questions, I wanted to talk about the country itself, not just the cuisine, but also the country. And for people who are with us, like if you can tell us about if they had like 2 weeks to spend in Colombia, where would you recommend that they go and why?
I'm sorry, Mike, but I can't hear you.
Oh, I was saying like if for people who are on the line, like if they had to spend a couple of weeks in Colombia, where would you recommend them that they see first?
The Colombia region, everything must be seen. I mean, you can start if you want to start from north to the south. You can go to Cartagena, Santa Marta, go to the Parque Tayrona, see beautiful sights, see the ocean, the Caribbean Ocean, get into the inland, into all the regions. We have to see the coffee region. We have to see all those places that are very rich in culture. San Agustin, it's a place to visit. Bogota is a must. Medellin, the countryside, Los Llanos Orientales. Go all the way to Leticia. It's beautiful. Colombia, it's very beautiful, and it's also, I would say, the next bodega with all the ingredients that we have to offer, all those different flavors for all the foodies that would like to come and visit Colombia.
Yeah, and now that a lot more countries are opening up more and more, I know that it's easier and easier to get to Colombia. There's more and more flights getting to Bogota, and from Bogota, which is kind of in the center of the country, you can get to a lot of other areas. One area which I know is probably not something you would recommend to do like right away at first because there's so many things to see, but I had the occasion to visit Caño Cristales, which is probably one of the most beautiful rivers in the world, if not the most beautiful river in the world, because it has algae which colors the water, and with the sun you can see sometimes like 6 or 7 different colors which look like crystal.
Exactly. All the different shades are gorgeous.
All right, so some new questions are coming in. A question from Nomade: what is the main dish with fish?
We have many different dishes or main dishes with fish. Depends on the region. I would say one that I like is an encocado, which is fish cooked in coconut milk with herbs and spices, which is very, very good. Served with a coconut rice, I would say is one of the most important. Also, they do a lot of fried fish on the bone in the coastal regions, very African influence too.
So continuing to talk about fish, are there any fish stews as well?
Yes, like I just said, encocado. Also, they do inland. They do sudados de pescado with fish that are freshwater fish.
Freshwater
Yudo
fish.
de pescado, exactly. With bagre, with a catfish, all those different fishes.
Got it. Another question: do you fry vegetables in Latin America and marinate them in honey, maybe zucchini? Like, are there any specific dishes traditional like that are fried?
Well, there's a lot of fried food, but we don't normally fry vegetables and marinate them like they're saying,
Mostly like steamed or boiled. Um,
or stewed inside the soups and the how do you call it? The stews exactly.
in the stew. So talking about this, like I know when we discussed a couple of weeks ago, one of the questions I had for you is um, how Colombian cuisine is different. You know, because obviously coming from the outside of South America, we sometimes a lot of people don't really make the distinction between the different cuisines of the different country. But if you had to define Colombian cuisine compared to other Latin American cuisine, how would you say it's really unique and different from other Latin American cuisines?
Well, as I said at the beginning, Colombian cuisine it was designed for the people to go out and work in the countryside. So it's very hearty, long, long cooking hours of stews and soups, um, and it has many different starches inside. Like we said, I would say it's very. It has a big variety depending on the region. All the ingredients are different.
Yeah, one thing that's obviously with the 196 flavors, we have covered a lot of countries that are bigger with very different regional variations. But I would say in Colombia, the additional element is what you mentioned, the pisos térmicos, where you don't see that in a lot of countries where there's so much variations in the altitude, which obviously is going to influence what we see a lot is differences in climate, obviously, with different regions within countries, but you don't see as much like such variations in altitudes that really define the cuisine, the regional cuisines.
But again, the difference in climate are seasonal, with the winter and the summer. But here we are in the Ecuador, and in our regions, it's either wet or dry, but it's normally the same temperature.
That is true. So a couple questions that came in around Colombian Christmas dishes or foods that are eaten around the holiday. Easter is another big holiday in Latin American countries. So are there any specific dishes for these holidays?
Well, in some homes in Christmas, they eat tamales, they eat the ajiaco. In El Valle del Cauca, all this sugar syrup cooked fruits are eaten at this time of year. There are some tradition like buñuelos with honey, like we mentioned before. Um, Turkey came afterwards. Roast pork came afterwards. But these
Roast
are
pork.
the dishes. Exactly.
Perfect.
Ya voy a terminar.
So talking about meat specifically, when I was in the south, closer to the Amazon, they're really really big on slow roasted meat, carne a la llanera, I think it's called.
Carne a la llanera, exactly. It's it's large cuts of beef roasted on a fire on a stick on with a long distance from the fire, slowly cooked, lots of salt, lots of seasoning, and it's very good too.
And
Normally they eat
also
with an
beer, right?
avocado salad.
Is it always marinated in beer or something like this?
Mostly often marinated with beer and spices to break
Spices.
down a little bit of that fiber because it's done with larger cuts of meat.
Perfect. There's a lot of questions that I think we already covered. I'm trying to like scroll through them because there's quite a few. I think we covered all of them. If there's any other question, I know we covered a lot. The different ingredients that are specific to Colombian cuisine, the spices, the herbs. But if there is any other question that you may have from people, while we are waiting for potential, we have about 10 minutes left if we want to. But if there's anything else that you wanted to talk about, Chef Harry, that we may not have covered or we may not have discussed with the questions, anything else that you would want to share with our audience?
I love a patacon, which is a deep fried green banana, which is fried twice, thick chunks of green banana, first in a medium temperature oil, then it's smashed and deep fried in a hot oil again. Very crisp, it's delicious. We have many different things in our cuisine that are very good. Lots of snacks. We have a wide variety of sausages, chorizos, longanizas, morcillas, all these traditional Spanish sausages that were passed on and then seasoned with local ingredients like mint or cilantro or onions and garlic, which are very good. Normally eaten with an arepa and some hot sauce. They're delicious.
So talking about patacones, that's probably something that I would always order whichever restaurant I was going to when I was there. And typically it's served with an ogao sauce or Creole sauce, which is really good. I didn't find Colombian cuisine to be, in general, very spicy, but you can ask, most of the time you can ask for ají sauce, so ají picante.
Exactly.
But in general, I don't think traditional Colombian cuisine is very hot, right?
No, traditional Colombian cuisine, it's not spicy at all.
It's not spicy.
You always serve it on the side and you put it on top.
If you want to.
Exactly.
Got it. All right, I think we have exhausted all the questions. So before we wrap up, if there's any parting comments, conclusion that if there's one thing that you would want people to remember about Colombian cuisine, maybe a couple of things that you would say to kind of summarize the essence of the cuisine, what would you say that they would be?
Well, Colombians are very friendly people. If you visit us, come and visit us, and you will find a very rich country with many different ingredients, many different cooking techniques that you will enjoy, and people would love to show you around. And we have gone through tough times, but we're back, and we're ready to show the world what Colombian cuisine is all about. Mike, thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me in your show, and hope to see you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chef Harry. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. And like I said, you will be able to watch the replay of this session with Chef Harry on YouTube or Facebook. Thanks again for all your insights, Chef Harry. And until next time.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.